It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 99. Day in that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. What it do, man? Glad y'all came back and fucking with the bean, man. Glad y'all came back, bro. To watch another one of these crazy true crime stories. You know how we do it over here. And we're gonna take it back to a channel that we was I think we just watched the video from the channel probably like 2 days ago. But dude do a great job and he just put out another video and we finna get into it. Who that channel be? Who that channel is? Coffeehouse Crime. Hey, I'm freshly subscribed, bro. And this popped up on my recommended because he just put it out like an hour ago. And I said, hey, I was just about to make a reaction video, so I might well watch this with y'all. The title of the video is A Killer's Terrible Secret, the chilling case of Sierra Lamar. I wonder how long that killer secret was a secret. You know what I'm saying? Before he got exposed, was it months, years, weeks, days? How long did he keep this secret? But we finna see. But before we see, my people, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, man, cause dude gonna do a great job. This bro, we finna get into it. Y'all got what y'all need? Then let's get into it.
On March the 16th, 2012, 15-year-old Sierra Lamar was walking to her bus stop in Morgan Hill when she suddenly vanished. This was entirely out of character, and Sierra's family and friends knew something terrible must have happened. A very concerning trail of clues awaited them, and over the following months, America pieced together a harrowing story, one that led to a deeply disturbed individual. Today we're looking into the case of Sierra Lamar, and the forensic evidence that was so clear and robust that it led to a conviction without authorities ever finding a body. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening folks. My name is Adrian, and welcome back to another video by Coffeehouse Crime. If you're new here, I post true crime and strange cases weekly. So if you haven't yet, please consider subscribing, grab yourself a coffee, and make yourself at home. Now let's get straight into today's video. This is the case of Sierra Lamar.
And before we get into it, bro, did I hear correctly that he said the body was never found? Is this where we going with this shit? Oh, God. Get whatever you may need.
Welcome back to the United States, folks. Our story today begins in the state of California. Found in the San Francisco Bay Area lies a small city named Fremont. Founded in the 1840s, the Fremont area proliferated during the Californian Gold Rush. And of course, many things have changed since then. Where Fremont once was nothing more than a post office with farmland for grapes, nursery plants and olives, it is now home to over 230,000 residents. You may know the city for its Bay Area rapid transport system, which ferries residents all over the region and into neighboring San Francisco. But Fremont is otherwise reasonably quiet with its reputation. In fact, there's not much to talk about at all. While there's proof that mammoths lived here over 2 million years ago, Fremont is now home to a Tesla factory, which employs over 15,000 people. It also houses several historic American buildings, such as Niles Silent Film Museum, Shin Arboretum, and Mission San Jose Cemetery. You'd be lucky to find more interesting facts about the area, as this sleepy city is known as San Francisco's quiet little brother. But in March of 2012, that would change for all the wrong reasons. Zeroing in on our story today, we meet the Lamars, aptly living in Fremont, California. The family of four consisted of computer engineer and father Steve, mother Marlene, and their 2 daughters. The youngest daughter, Sierra, was born on October the 19th, 1996, and her older sister, Danielle, was about 4 years her senior. Both girls grew up in a relatively comfortable environment. Like all families, they had their ups and downs. However, there was one very concerning detail behind closed doors. During their younger years, Danielle's and Sierra's father had acted inappropriately with one of their school friends during a sleepover. And after getting caught, Steve pleaded no contest to lewd acts with a minor. Needless to say, and as a result, he was imprisoned for 1 year. And the revelation understandably broke the family apart.
I know it did, bro. And I'm not a female, but I just wonder, like, how would a female, even though he ain't touch y'all or do whatever he did, but he did it to your friend, like, even though he ain't molested y'all or whatever, he still did it to a little girl. I wonder how you would feel as the daughter of a fucking molester, child molester. Fucked up. Yeah, he fucked the family up when he did that.
Despite Steve's former convictions, Danielle and Sierra had a very good relationship with him, claiming he'd always been a caring and respectful father. Steve and Marlene, though, they were well and truly over, and soon after hearing the news, the two divorced. Soon after this, she found herself a new man. Both Sierra and Danielle attended their local high school, Washington High School, where they made plenty of friends and did relatively well in their studies. Sierra was described as a happy-go-lucky girl. She was fun-loving, energetic, big-hearted, and very popular at school. She enjoyed cheerleading and competitive dancing. Eventually, Marlene made the decision to move from Fremont to Morgan Hill, which is located around 40 miles or 60 kilometers southwest of the city. In October of 2011, she and her boyfriend Rick Gardner, along with Sierra, relocated to Morgan Hill. Rick was working in the construction industry, and although work was picking up, money was still relatively tight. The three of them moved into a rented ranch-style house on Paquito Hispana Court, a rural cul-de-sac surrounded by farm fields. Now, obviously, Sierra was quite upset to be moving away from her close friends and hobbies to a place where she knew no one. And although she was quite popular at Washington High, the reception at Sobrato High School wasn't quite so welcoming. Nevertheless, as time passed, Sierra found her place in Sobrato High. She eventually made friends, became well-liked amongst other students, and even joined the cheerleading squad again. Fast forward 5 months, and into March of 2012, Sierra had done well to adapt into the area. Come March the 11th, she called her father and sister, who were back in Fremont, to tell them of her progress. The conversation was generally happy. She talked about wanting to get her hair dyed the next time she went to Fremont, was excited about one of her upcoming school assignments, and told her sister all about her homework. Apparently, she was doing very well with her grades. With the evening fast approaching, Sierra ended the call with Danielle and Steve shortly after dinner. With it being a Thursday, she had school the following day. The three of them amicably said goodbye for the night, expecting to talk again soon. However, very little did any of them know, this would be the last time that Danielle and Steve spoke to Sierra.
What happened?
March the 16th, 2012. Back in Morgan Hill, it was a typical workday. The Gardner-Lamar household followed its everyday morning routine. Rick woke up to leave for work at around 6 AM, and shortly after this, Marlene came to kiss Sierra on the forehead before leaving for her own job too. It was now up to Sierra to get ready for school and lock up the house. Tweeting a friend at 6:29 AM, she put on her shoes and then headed out of the front door to get the bus. You see, Paquito Hispana Court was quite far out from Sobrato High School and the rest of Morgan Hill. Like many children across America, Sierra would have to walk down a rural road surrounded by farmland through Palm and Doherty avenues to catch the bus every morning. At 7:11 AM, while on the way, she texted a friend to ask if they could meet up before classes began. But only 4 minutes later, when her school bus arrived at 7:15 AM, Sierra was nowhere to be seen. Sierra failed to show up for a bus, and even worse, she failed to meet up her friend before class,
And bruh, I believe, I already know, if she got kidnapped, walking to a bus stop, whoever kidnapped her, we already know that it was premeditated. Like, he had been seeing her walk to school, you know what I'm saying, that same routine, and he picked up on it and attacked.
even school at all. Although her friends thought it was odd that Sierra hadn't shown up for school, none of them figured it was prudent enough to alert the school. The day carried on without her as usual. As the school day ended, Marlene did her usual and called Sierra to see how the day was going. She thought it was odd that Sierra's phone went straight to voicemail, but didn't stress out. However, after returning home and realizing that her daughter's bedroom remained empty, she knew something was wrong. She called Steve to check if Sierra had headed back to Fremont to spend time with him, which would have been annoying but not terrible. Concerningly, this wasn't the case either. Calling Danielle and several of Sierra's friends, they all returned the same message. and after calling Sabretto High School and learning that she'd missed all of her classes, Marlene began to panic.
I know she did.
I talked to her, said goodbye, and gave her a hug, and things were good, and I told her I loved her.
Marlene Lamar had no idea her 15-year-old daughter Sierra didn't make it to school Friday until getting an email from Sabretto High School that evening. Alarming because Sierra usually walks to a school bus before dawn. But the bus driver saw no sign of her, and neither did her friends all day.
I can't believe that she would not contact her friends and let them know that she's okay and do this. She would never want us to go through all this pain.
Calling authorities, officers were dispatched to Paquito Hispana Court immediately. But with such a long time frame in which Sierra could have disappeared, investigators did not know where to start. They began with those closest to Sierra. Naturally, this included several of her friends, who were all quite upfront with the current situation that Sierra and her family were in. Now, Sierra was generally a happy person, but it had only been a few months since her divorced mother had forced her to move away from home, leaving her former life and all of her old friends behind. She often joked and even seriously talked about running back to Fremont, and authorities took this as a sign that she had likely willingly run away on her own accord. Although officers were playing down the seriousness of Sierra's disappearance, other aspects were going in the total opposite direction. Not only did she remain silent, but all activity on her social media ceased to exist. Her phone was switched off, all calls went through to voicemail, and she never showed up at the front door. Understandably, Sierra's family and friends were petrified.
Yeah, man, I mean, bro, you try to hold out hope that she okay and stuff, but the way she acting and they know that she don't never act like this, like she ain't with her friends, her family, no nothing, cell phone off, all this, bro, no activity from her whatsoever to nobody. At some point, man, you gotta start thinking the worst about the situation, bro. You start thinking bad, man.
And so, despite sluggish police efforts, the great search for Sierra Lamar officially began. Now, the trail of clues left in Sierra's disappearance is one of the longest, most complex, and most interesting that I've covered. And it all started on Sunday morning, 2 days after she'd vanished. While data forensics were busy analysing her phone's historical data, they realised that, in the middle of the night, it had given off one single electronic ping. The phone seemed to be switched on and then off again just a couple seconds later, and its coordinates were leading them to a field just a few blocks from Sierra's home.
Oh shit.
Come sunrise, a search team carefully combed through the fields where the phone had been pinged from, and after searching for only several minutes, they found it. Sierra's Samsung Galaxy had been located a stone's throw away from the road. Due to its distance, it was speculated that it must have been thrown from the road due to the physical damage that it had incurred. Investigators concluded that her phone had not been manually switched on that night. Instead, they believed that the rain had created a false charge signal and turned her phone on for a brief second. Now this was a very lucky coincidence. Authorities finding her phone holds great weighting to the end of the story, and it all happened due to a raindrop and a short circuit. With no footprints, tire track marks, or any other form of visual evidence, it was likely that her phone was thrown from a moving vehicle. And given the nature and circumstances of this case, that was very concerning news to officers. The following day came another gut-wrenching discovery. Tossed just outside a barn only 2 miles away from Sierra's home, a search team had discovered her backpack. The bag contained her schoolwork, inhaler and money, therefore indicating that she had intended to go to school and was likely forced away from her own crucial possessions. Unfortunately, it just gets worse from here. Her bag also contained an entire set of clothing, likely that of what she was wearing on the morning she disappeared, and this included her jumper, trousers, socks, shoes, and even underwear. DNA analysis was conducted on her clothing, which came back with positive results. They found foreign DNA from a male on her trousers, indicating that it was likely that she had been assaulted. Search efforts had already drastically ramped up in the days after Sierra's disappearance, but with her phone and clothing now found, came a new wave of support from the local community and further afar. Over 1,000 new tips came through to authorities, and officers conducted more than 7,000 hours of activity. More than 800 volunteers made up several search teams. They meticulously scoured through fields, searched abandoned buildings, and investigated all local lakes and reservoirs. Sierra's name was talk of the town, and missing persons posters were erected all over the area. Sierra's parents also raised a $10,000 reward to anyone who could provide solid evidence. But despite their and the community's best efforts, nothing other than a golf ball and a flipper was found.
It's day 18 and still no sign of Sierra. But sheriff's investigators are not giving up. They're extending their search, canvassing new areas, looking and praying she will be found alive. Investigators have received hundreds of tips and information from the community, a driving force, they say, that's keeping this case alive. And as for the physical evidence, Sierra's clothing and cell phone, as well as the stainless steel handcuffs and used condoms that were found, are all still being analyzed for any connection to Sierra's whereabouts.
Bruh, I'm getting kind of frustrated and kind of pissed off, because I'm just thinking that the fact of whoever killed her, whoever the killer is, bruh, you got the audacity to leave evidence behind. You threw the cell phone, left all this girl possessions, and then you ain't let her put her clothes back on, so you just took her wherever you took her, just butt naked, bruh. Like, it's like, bruh, this dude here is sick, whoever did this shit. But I'm just stuck on how he leaving evidence, bruh, like he don't give a fuck. You left her clothes and shit. Didn't give a fuck. Let's go.
Unknown to the public at the time, but investigators were actually closing in on a potential suspect. On March 28th, 12 days after Sierra's disappearance, analysis concluded that the DNA found on her trousers belonged to a man living in the local area. A total of 57 registered sex offenders lived in the Morgan Hill zip code, and all of them were investigated and compared against the DNA sample. For the record, Sierra's father approached authorities about his previous crimes as soon as she went missing, and he was ruled out of being a potential suspect almost immediately. But one of those men who was not ruled out was a local man named Antolin Garcia Torres. The 21-year-old man first entered the spotlight after a positive DNA match between himself and Sierra's trousers. Antolin lived about 7 miles away from Sierra's home, living in Maple Leaf RV Park with his mother, then pregnant wife and daughter. And Antolin's history is concerning at best. He had a very difficult childhood, full of neglect and violence. His father was an abusive alcoholic who had threatened to kill him and his mother at least once. That was before he was eventually arrested and put in prison for abusing an underage relative. Sadly, this awful characteristic found its way from Antolin's father to Antolin himself. In 2009, he was arrested for having sex with a minor. And although these charges were eventually dropped, his DNA had been collected as a result. He was also arrested in 2010 for obstructing police activity. This worrying connection between Sierra and Antolin prompted investigators to put him on 24-hour surveillance.
Yeah.
Whether Sierra was alive or not, nobody knew. But at least in this moment of time, Antolin was the most likely to know. As a result, officers took several measures to monitor his movements and methods of communication. His phone was tapped, his vehicle was discreetly bugged with a GPS tracker, and 2 undercover officers moved into an RV across the road from his home.
Damn, they were watching the shit out of his ass. He deserved to be though, bro. I believe we got our killer, y'all. I believe we might got him.
Investigators also began to look through surveillance footage found around Antolin's local area. And after realizing that the RV park had cameras at the front entrance, they analyzed this footage on the day of her disappearance to see if Antolin had left or returned to his home. Lo and behold, they discovered that Antolin had left the RV park in his red Volkswagen Jetta at 7 AM on the very morning that she had disappeared. And with a distance of only 7 miles between his and Sierra's home, his travelling time would perfectly match the time frame in which Sierra could have been abducted. Although Antolin had left his home at the usual time he would go to work, shift records from his employer Safeway confirmed that he did not work on March the 16th. And after further discussion with his management, they learned of some more bad news. It turns out that just 3 years prior, 3 failed abductions had taken place in the very same car park of this Safeway. And although these attempts were thankfully unsuccessful, no one was ever formally identified or arrested. Only one of these attempted abductions had any form of evidence left behind, which was a taser that the perpetrator had dropped. Found on one of its batteries was a fingerprint. However, it was only a partial fingerprint, and could only be matched in a direct one-to-one comparison. The idea was tempting, and after comparing Antolin's fingerprints to those found on the taser, came a very shocking revelation. Antolin was in fact their suspect. Investigators now had a very likely suspect. His DNA was found on Sierra's trousers. He was confirmed to be out when she disappeared, and he has former connections with abductions. This was enough to bring him in for questioning and for his car to be impounded for DNA analysis. And although Antolin was smug in his interview, test results were quite damning. He was actually very dismissive during his interrogation. He claimed that he had no idea who Sierra was, that he was confident they would find nothing, and that he went fishing on the day she disappeared. But Antolin did not finish his interview without giving a very bizarre confession. You see, Antolin confessed that he had a rather nasty habit of strangling the snake while driving, and would throw the unlucky tissue out of the window. Not only this, but on the very morning that Sierra disappeared, he claimed to have thrown out a used tissue in the exact area her bag was found. Now,
he need to stop the cap, bro. This is your secret. Is this the secret, or is this what he trying to go with? I know that he need to stop this. Antolin need to cut this out.
We've already had a 1 in a million chance with the raindrops and Sierra's mobile phone, and the police weren't buying his ridiculous story either. On May the 21st, 2012, Antolin Garcia Torres was officially arrested in connection to the disappearance of Sierra Lamar outside of his work in a Safeway car park. This was due to several clear connections between Sierra and Antolin's car. DNA analysis had concluded that her DNA was on the internal door handle of the car's rear door. Additionally, some rope found inside Antolin's car contained a strand of Sierra's hair, and fibers from his car seats matched that found on Sierra's clothing. This means that without a doubt, she had been inside his vehicle at least at one point in time. But despite his arrest, there was still one massive problem with the situation. Although it may have seemed obvious what happened to her, Sierra's body had still not been found. And with no body or confirmed death, could they really charge Antolin with first-degree murder? The answer was yes, and in fact, on May 19, 2014, Santa Clara County District Attorney Jeff Rossen announced that he would be seeking the death penalty against Antolin. By now, Antolin had already pleaded not guilty to murdering Sierra, but with so much evidence suggesting right up to the finish line that he had, there was little to no wiggle room. On January 30th, 2017, and after being postponed, Antolin's trial officially began. The trial was both long and burdensome for everyone involved. Over 13 weeks of testimonies took place, with long arguments from both the prosecution and the defense. One part of the trial that I found interesting, but Antolin's defense team tried to argue that pesticide exposure from nearby fields during his childhood could have psychologically altered his cognitive abilities, and therefore this was not his fault. They also claimed that he should be disqualified from the death penalty.
Because he had nothing to do with that toxic exposure, and under those circumstances, they're going to say that is something that he couldn't help, and that is a deficit that he faced as a young man that other people don't face. So this testimony from the expert is designed to go after his mental state and to say that he didn't have a normal childhood. And additionally, he was subjected to exposure to toxic chemicals, which could have affected his decision-making process and his brain function at a very organic level.
In a last-ditch effort, Antolin's defense team requested a new trial after questioning the credibility and truthfulness of the lead investigator, alleging that he had mishandled evidence in previous cases. However, this motion was denied. On Tuesday, May the 9th, 2017, the jury found Antolin Garcia Torres guilty of the first-degree murder of Sierra Lamar. Although Sierra's body has never been found, and there is no explicit confirmation that she is dead, the evidence was stacked so high against Antolin that he had no way to walk away from his actions. Directly addressing him in court, Sierra's mother stared at him right in the eye and said, "I find it incomprehensible to commit a heinous violent crime. You caused great pain to our family and to yours. You have robbed Sierra of what God had planned for her, and you can choose to make a choice and repent and tell us where she is. I think about her all of the time, and what's been taken from me as a mother. It's just hard to believe that this happened. I still wake up every day thinking it's a dream, but it's reality." Antolin remained stoic and unmoving as several of Sierra's relatives read letters to him and the courtroom. And both then, and even now, he still maintains his innocence over Sierra's murder. This means that he has never disclosed where Sierra's body may be, and tragically, outside of the evidence provided, no one knows what actually happened to her on the day that she disappeared. Although he was spared the death penalty, Antolin was officially sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which, if you think about it, is quite the achievement, considering no body has ever been found.
I'll take it.
Since his conviction, Antolin has remained almost entirely silent, and despite receiving hundreds of letters from news stations and strangers, only one letter has been replied to. In this letter, which was addressed to a news reporter from Crone 4, Antolin said, "I hold fast to my innocence, and I'm not going to talk about the case. I have no trust in the news. There is a lot of selective reporting which paints a picture not always true. I too believe that every person has a right to have their voice heard. But unfortunately, those days are long gone." Now honestly, I'm not sure why Antolin still claims his innocence. With his DNA on Sierra's belongings, Sierra's DNA in his car, his former criminal record, and a perfect timeline, this is all just clear as day. Clear as day that he was involved in Sierra's disappearance, at least. And according to friends and family, there is no way that she would still be missing if she was still alive. As I usually like to present in these stories, but there were several dark and interesting side notes to this case. On June the 19th, 2012, 3 months after she had disappeared, fake photos were shared online displaying Sierra's Facebook account posting several updates to say that she was being held captive and needed help. This was later proven to be fake. But honestly, what kind of sick person does this?
Why would somebody do that, bro? Are you fucking kidding me? People out here are sick as fuck, bro. Why would you do that?
There was a legitimate post of dark irony, however. In the evening before Sierra disappeared, she retweeted a tweet to say, "Going to school tomorrow, I'd rather kill myself." According to some organisers, the attempt to find Sierra was the longest continuous search for an individual in US history. Over the space of 3 years, volunteers conducted more than 1,100 searches in a 15-mile radius. And between them, they combined a total of 50,000 man-hours of search time. They faced hot summer days, rainy autumn evenings, and cold winter nights, scanning local woods, ravines, rivers and thickets for any clue about the missing young woman. Even to this day, volunteers still look in desperate hope for Sierra Lamar. And although most of them accept that Sierra is most likely dead, they still wish to bring her home and her family the closure they deserve. To this day, no one knows where Sierra's body may be, but hopefully one day the Lamar family will find closure. If you believe you have any information that may help authorities discover her location, then please visit the link I've left below. And that just about wraps up today's case, folks, but thank you so much for
Man, I'm gonna leave that link below on mine too, bro. It's cool. I love to see a group of people, a large group of people get together and try to actually find somebody who missing. Like, I love the team effort put in it, bro. But fuck Antolin, man. Dude just a character, man. It's like, I believe he one of them type of motherfucker, one of them murderers, where it's like he know all the evidence stacked up against him like a motherfucker, so he know it ain't no point of him trying to really defend himself. That's why he won't say nothing, because it ain't no point. Only thing he can say is, I ain't do it. But even though he know all this evidence stacked up against him, only thing he can say is, I ain't do it. Because he can't say no reason to it because all this evidence, you know what I'm saying? So it's like he rather not even just say anything other than, I ain't do it. That's the only thing he can say. He can't make up no shit. The shit he tried to make up was so ridiculous. You were choking the chicken while you were driving and threw the paper out the car when you got through, and it got on her clothes somehow magically. Or what about got the toxins in him when he was little? That's why he crazy. Like his defense attorney is ridiculous. Like this whole shit ridiculous, bro. I digress. That was good though, Coffeehouse, man. Oh man, Sierra. I want to say R.I.P., but you never know. But really, might well just gonna say R.I.P. to Sierra Lamar, bro. But we'll be back, Coffeehouse. I'll be back. Damn, she got me a little flustered right now. But I'll be back too, bro. And I hope y'all come back and fuck with me. But until then, my friends, the Bean Baby. Ledge.